Welcome to the War Room, a weekly roundtable discussion that takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in at 911warroom.com/Zoom.
So when the court brings up the question of standing, there's not just McElvey, but rather there are maybe dozens of survivors of victims. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Right.
Well, that's pursuing.
That's a lot of reaching out projects that we have.
Yeah.
One of them was to reach out to lawyers, which we offered the lawyers committee to help with. If they sent us a form letter with everything they wanted it to say, and some guidance on what kind of lawyer to target. That was something we wanted to get on board with and encourage people to do in their cities, to find lawyers who could help with the initiative, because the lawyers committee is really strapped both for time and for finances. So any help that they can get would be extremely welcome. What was the other initiative we had, Gene? There was another one. We wanted to target a whole bunch of people. Well, we want to target the youth, the students. That's on a whole other level. That won't be through letters. We'll have to figure that one out.
That's one I want to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
I want to talk about outreach to college students tonight.
Right. I just want to ask Robbie, are you Robbie Aloie? Because it says Robbie Abelos. That's you? From Portland?
Yeah, I'm from Portland. Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. I had a rough month, but I got some time now, so I can hopefully hang out these weekends.
Cool. I just want to just before we really get into all of this, just a quick reminder: 5:20. Gene, you still want to go ahead, right?
Yes.
Okay, so 5:20. For anybody who doesn't know, Gene takes a minute out for collective.
I call it prayer. You guys can call it a moment of silence.
Together, whether it's prayer.
Yeah, you guys can call it whatever you want to call it. You can bug out if you want, if you're offended that much. If not, just chill for a second while I pray. All right.
So there's that. And again, we're several people on the call. So just if everyone can be just mindful of the time they take to address whatever issue, so that everybody gets a chance to participate.
Who's the anonymous phone person?
Doug, is that you?
Doug
West?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks for
Hi,
joining, Doug. And I'm not feeling very good at all this, so I might be laying down here for some of this.
Okay.
The hosts or any co-hosts can change the phone number into a name for him.
Okay. I'll make
so you can know.
As long as we're not being swarmed with individual phone numbers, I think we'll be okay to note that the 360 is Doug West for now, I think.
So as far as starting off with new news, I think Richard Gage did a couple new interviews on his podcasts with Claudio Marti. Who else was in there?
Claudio was the week before. This week it was supposed to have Dan Handley, and that kind of didn't really work out too well.
Yep, with the pilots.
And I wonder who the other person was. Really? That would have been me.
Oh, thank you. Gee. Man, I am sick. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to be terrible at this today.
That's okay.
What other new news?
Well, the new news to me, if you don't mind, just, to touch, go back to Richard, it's, one can really wonder where all of this is going to be headed with him taking this new direction and his new style, if you want to call it that. But I, for one, am thrilled that he's embracing the whole idea of bringing the factions together. First of all, the different angles that he's willing to give everyone a platform to lay out their angles and their take on because we have so much disagreement in the movement. I've been screaming at the top of my lungs for years that we needed to bring these people together, or at least in a respectful way, try to have an exchange about this. We don't have to agree on everything. I'm very personally convinced that we don't have to have all the answers and all be on the same page for us to move forward. So I'm just really thrilled with that. And he wants to bridge that gap to activists. He's building a community hub. He asked me to help him build it, which is ironic because this is kind of what we're doing in this call. So it seems that everybody wants to be heading in that direction, and it's going to be critical that even as grassroots activists, we learn how to talk to each other and use the tools that we have to move this thing forward, because it's been 20 years. And so we have to think outside the box, which is what I've spoken to Robbie about, because he's a comedian. And I think that's a really, really big aspect of one way we can go about things. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly say those two things about Richard's developing status and how I think all of us have a part to play in that. And David, I hope he has you on. I can't imagine he wouldn't. You're one of the.
He said he would, so we'll see.
Well, I honestly, it would be unimaginable for him to bring this to the table and not have you as one of the first people he speaks to. So I'm very much crossing my fingers. Sorry, Gene, that was a long parenthesis, and you
There's
wanted.
something David said that I think is very important that I like to bring up. And the reason he didn't want to do a debate was because the other side simply claims that he's making up evidence and that the evidence is phony. And I think that's a good reason not to be part of a debate. I mean, I want there to be a debate, but I can't see how we can expect David to respond to charges like that.
Well, what I can do, what I intend to do whenever I'm on, is just show the evidence that we have. We're not fabricating anything. I can show it right out in black and white, and you can see what the evidence that I'm basing my thinking on. And there it is. The thing that is the problem is that when you have a theory such as the CIT theory, which is the plane never touched anything, then it embeds within the theory the idea that evidence is irrelevant, because any evidence is automatically falsified or something. I mean, fabricated.
Richard did point out that he doesn't want it to be so much a debate as we're trying to compete or go at each other. He wants each person will present their information separately, and then in some iteration of discussions, then perhaps we have people on at the same time, so as to give a very good way to present the information.
So presenting evidence is not a problem. I mean, I can present the evidence that I'm using in my thinking, and it's not just me, it's a whole group of us that have, I mean, it goes way back. I mean, all the way to Jim Hoffman and everything else. There's a lot of evidence that's been laid on the table. So I have no problem talking evidence.
Should be interesting. Look forward to a lot of good conversations there.
I was hoping I could maybe comment on a little bit of that, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
One thing that one of the groups that I'm with, and we're trying to out here in Portland do some of the similar truth action project, I guess we're starting up. One thing that we're trying to compile, and one question that I thought was very beneficial in this compiling of evidence is to think in your head, just think to yourself, why is this important? Why is this so important, and why are you so called to spreading the truth? Because I think when you look at it from that angle, you might find some evidence that can be shared. That was something that came to my mind, and I thought was very beneficial when you were talking about what type of evidence we would all like to share.
Thank you.
I'd like to chime in, guys. Over the years, I've seen the infighting, and I always defer back to 7 because to me, that's always the one that's the clearest and most obvious. And I've always felt that any other the theoretical discussion, whether it be the Pentagon or whatever, it's all just for sport. We should, in my belief, we should always defer to just going with 7 to get things rolling. And I know you guys have moved well beyond that. But anytime I get in an argument with somebody that wants to adhere to the official story, I just stick with 7. And I've over the years, I've been able to convince a number of people to look at that as a singular event and try to, explain to me how fire caused the collapse. And I've had people say, Ernie, man, now you really got me thinking. And I think that's what we're all trying to do, is get more people thinking, just to realize what's going on here. So at some point we have a mass of people that can move the needle. It's been very frustrating seeing some of the infighting.
I did ask Richard on several occasions, what if you had less than 30 seconds to talk to somebody, what would you say? And he said, I would ask them, and he leans into the camera, did you know a 3rd tower fell? And I asked him about, what are your top pieces of evidence? And he agreed. For some reason, people cannot wrap their mind around free fall. It's almost an abstract thought for them. But nanothermite and iron microspheres are solid evidence. So that's why he uses those top 3. But I agree, 7 is probably, for me, that's a great starter. And then as far as solid evidence, the nanothermite and iron microspheres and the dust, those 3 are the trifecta of truth, I think, in my opinion, without getting into other avenues that are highly controversial.
Well, I haven't moved past 7. I'm very much associated with 7, but I haven't moved past it in any way. The thing that draws me to looking at all of the other aspects of 9/11 is because it's our weakest link where we're going to get hammered, and the people aren't, the media is never, or the course, or whoever it is, are never, ever, ever going to look at our World Trade Center evidence if they can get us on being, wild-eyed conspiracy theorists on the Pentagon, for instance. So that's my thing. It's a defensive thing to have to not be putting out crap. We need to put out good, solid evidence on the whole picture. Go ahead.
I had one thing that on the anniversary.
Robbie, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought just 1 second. Robbie, hold on 1 second, because I just quickly want to say something, and then it's going to be 5:20, and we're going to just move to taking out a minute. I see this a little bit like a murder. World Trade Center 7 is the obvious, most convincing part of the evidence, and everything else is just additional to that. So, if you're trying to reach people outside the choir, then you don't need to go down into the details of some of the other aspects of it. You have them right there on 7. Then I would argue that 7 is the free fall is a lot more accessible to someone like me, because if you tell me about nanothermite, I could just claim that, well, somebody said it's there. That to me, as far as I'm concerned, that could just be hearsay. So, but whatever works, you're going to reach different people with different angles, and you just have to meet them where they are. That's what I always say. Anyways, Robbie, hold on 1 second. Gene?
Yeah, if you guys don't mind,
Are you ready to go?
take a moment with me real quick. Lord, I just lift this up to you, and thank you for all these people being graceful enough to give me this moment just to lift up a prayer 5:20 every day, Lord. We're just asking that all of these folks that have invested their time and heart in this, Lord, that you would hear our cries for justice, that you would empower us, help to give us a strength. Please help our words fall on ears of people that will hear us, that Judge Gardeffi's mind and heart would be softened, that Attorney General forgot his name, whatever it is, Lord, that you would be working in his heart and mind as well. And Lord, that we could get 9/11 justice, not only those people that died that day, but those that continue to die in the cancers and wars ever since. We just lift this up to you and lay it at your feet in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Amen. Thank you. I think Ken Doc, was that you who just joined us? Or is it Ken Henry? Not sure which Ken it is. All right, Robbie, your turn, go ahead. Sorry, you were gonna address David.
No, yeah, and I was kind of just gonna echo what you said, which is like you have to, from the experience that I had with trying to convince people about it, it's, you know, I put it into an analogy like having a toolbox, where, yeah, World Trade Center 7 is obviously the first one. You know, you got to meet people where they are, and that's going to be a different thing, you know, per person. So, for instance, I typically go down the route of the military drills that were being ran and bring up the military defense spending and how the most, you know, that whole thing that I don't even have to tell you all about. But that right there is another, you know, I was able to convince quite a few people who I think had in military or people who were, you know, with that. So it's the toolbox that I think we're creating with this compiling of evidence where we can then adapt to each conversation and see where that person's at and see what we can do to try to convince them that, you know, here, look, you're, you know, here's another thing. That's all I was going to say.
David?
Yeah, I just wanted to say as regards, I'm sorry, I have computer problems, is why I dropped off, not by choice. Regarding the military, at one point we were trying to get enough truthers to attend the Veterans for Peace meetings. They actually are probably the least anti-truth of the major national peace groups. They certainly have upset us by many of their leaders being bad, but there are there have been leaders there who have been open. And the point is that if we had enough people attend their join, and you don't even have to be a veteran, although I'm an associate member, I'm not a veteran, but if we had enough people, we could elect a slate of truthers for that organization.
Yeah, well, it always comes down to the resources and the
I'm a
people who are
veteran.
willing to step forward and get involved, right? I mean,
I'm happy to work with other people who think that's worth talking about.
I'm a veteran. Can you send me info on
Sure. Do I have your email?
it? Brotherton@gmail.
Okay,
I'll send it to you in the link.
great.
in the
Thank
chat,
you. Good.
okay,
Same,
I see
David.
Susan.
I'm a
Sorry,
veteran
Jane?
too. Go ahead and copy me on that too, David.
All right.
Okay, Susan,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I think what David said is very important. Let me lower my hand before I forget. There we go. And I was an associate member for many years with the Boston Veterans for Peace. And quite a few of them did get, for lack of a better word, converted to 9/11 truth. So yeah, that's very important. I'm not a member anymore because Boston is just too grueling to get to. But what I wanted to say, the reason I raised my hand is that I think it's very important when trying to talk to people about this issue to listen first, find out where they're coming from, and find out what that nugget of commonality is that you can latch onto. That's essential in a one-on-one. Of course, blogging and social media, you have to be more general because you can't really find out where they're coming from, except if you go to certain groups with social media. But always you got to pay attention to your audience. What's important to them? And grab that nugget, because there's a hell of a lot of nuggets related to 9/11. You can always draw a commonality. So
Right.
that's all I wanted to say.
I agree with that. Real quickly, I had a conversation with a gentleman at the park, and I saw he was wearing a San Jose State cap, and that I went to San Jose State and I talked to him about it. And next thing you know, we're having a conversation about our math courses, and he seemed like a math guy, and he brought up physics, and I thought, here's my opening. And I asked him if he was familiar about Building 7. He had no idea, never heard of it. This was a guy about 50, no idea. And his, when I quickly explained it to him, his jaw dropped, and he kind of was confused. And I know he went away thinking about it. Now, I don't know if he's going to research it, but I try to plant seeds every day with strangers. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
Richard did
always listen first.
Richard did say when I had asked that question, if you have less than 30 seconds to approach somebody, what would you say? He said, ask him about a third tower. He said, and his next statement was, and then listen. Just let them talk and give them time to vent. Because what we experienced this 20th anniversary up in New York is most people just wanted to tell you what they knew about it. They just wanted to pour it out to you. And there was the connection. And it was really, that was something else.
Yeah. And I think I would really, really like to underline, I'd be curious to ask all of you, whenever you did get on board with 9/11 or that there might be something wrong with it, how did it happen? Did someone bash you over the head with it and force you to look at it and try to convince you? Or did somebody plant a seed? Did you see something that made you question it? Did you get to your truth on your own, or were you force-fed the information? And I think I can safely say that most of us did the legwork ourselves. And that's the thing, you can't rush it. As much as we like to shake the crap out of people and grab them by the shoulders and make them look at it and say, look at what you're missing, it's never going to work that way, because everybody's defensive. Everybody's attached to their view of the world. And you have to leave them the space to come to their own truth. We all did it. I don't think we would have gotten there if someone had tried to shove it down our throats. So, yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I found dealing with technical people in particular is especially if they're kind of, if they just haven't been exposed to it yet. And it's pretty easy when you're dealing with a technical person to figure out, okay, how are they, is to just show them the NIST, the FIOA, that little clip where it's kind of 7 comes down, and just kind of bring that in and say, hey, check this out. What do you think of this? What do you think this is? And just let them see it and let them tell you what it is. Don't give them any background. Don't give them anything. Just say, what is this? What does this look like to you? 9 out of 10, guess what they say? Same thing everybody says. And then at that point, it's like, okay, well, you know what? At some point, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this, because what you see is exactly right. That's exactly what everybody else, that comes across this topic sees. But there's an interesting backstory if you're interested in hearing about it. And then roll it in. So with technical people, if you just kind of come in with technical jargon, if they're in any way emotionally involved in a belief system over here, it's very, very difficult for them. It becomes really quickly, it becomes a war of facts. Now you're doing this and you're not accomplishing anything. So that's just, sometimes it's better just to kind of come in from the side and let them tell you what they see, and then go, okay, here it is. And then when they come back later and say, oh, well, maybe, I'm like, well, no, you called it right. You're not having a problem with what you called. What you're having an issue with potentially is the implications. And that's something you can choose to work through or not, but that's, you called it right. So anyways.
Yeah. And I'm not a psychologist, but one of the basics of psychology is that a good shrink will not give you the answer to your problem or to what you're looking for.
They've got to find the answer themselves.
Yeah, exactly. A good shrink will lead you to find your own answers. And it's just that much more powerful, and it's going to be that much stronger if you piece it together for yourself than if someone just, writes it down on a piece of paper for you, and the shrink tells you, well, this is what you need to do. It's not. It's like a parent and a child too, right? You
Well,
can parent and tell a child
real
100
simple.
times, don't do that, you're going to get burnt, but nothing's going to quite hit home as much as the child actually getting burnt, and then knowing better after that. And
It adds a level of reality for them. It's real to them.
I'm sorry, Ed?
It adds a level of reality. It's real to them.
Yeah, it's got to be real. So that's the challenge, and it almost means that if like Ken said, if you do get into a conversation with someone, almost being able to walk away in that moment where you just want to spew a whole bunch of more information at them, and allow them to sit in that moment of just absorbing it and putting it together for themselves and allowing them to ask the questions, and not just have them ask a question, you come back with a 20-minute diatribe about everything that's wrong with it. So
yeah, Sandra, for many of us that have been doing this, pursuing this for over a decade, we've realized a couple of things. One, obviously, is how powerful propaganda is in changing people's beliefs, and also how powerful cognitive dissonance is. It's a real thing. I mean, until this and my study of it, I would have said, I don't know about that, but it's real, and it's hard to overcome in some people. They will just shut you out without any contemplation. And I think that's why the movement is fragmented, and it's been difficult to grow it. I would like to see that there's 2,000 people on this call, but I guess there's about 15,
Not too shabby.
You're right. And I love that everyone in this group is like, I'm not letting go of this, because this is a real thing, and it's changed the world in a horrific way, and future generations are going to be worse off because of it. I don't have any children, but still I have nephews and nieces and friends, etc. I won't stop. If I have a tombstone, I don't know that I will, it's going to say something about this. It's in my daily thought. It's in my dreams. And
but it's very important to know when to stop, so they have a chance to reflect on what you just said.
I do that with my daily cardio, but at the same time, when I'm hiking up the hill, I'm thinking, what's a better way to explain it to people? The numbers of hours I've ruminated over how to get the information in a manner that people simply can't deny it. I think I've come across, a way of communicating that's going to be super effective. And then I try it out, and I run into the same cognitive dissonance where people just are refusing to hear it, and they walk away. So I've lost a few friends over the years. I admit it. Some family members I'm no longer close with, but I accept that consequence, and I'm not letting go. I just won't. And that's why you guys are such an inspiration to me.
Thanks, Ernie. Morgan, you wanted to say something, and then Ken Henry. Oh, and then Susan or Lawrence. I'm not sure, you're both on the screen. So Morgan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have thought about this a lot, and I think we want to create a space, platform, or a house, whatever it is, where people get past things like cognitive dissonance, but also just people that think it sounds ludicrous and will not actually engage their logical, their own true logic. Most people, including myself, only learned better by doing 9/11 research, but most people are not very logical most of the time. We all assume this and that. So I've thought about what it is, what is it, the house where we can bring people in there, unlock them, deliver the message in a way where it sticks, almost like, I hate me for saying this, an inoculation or a jab. I think that house has a lot to do with scientific method, investigative philosophy, and academic rigor, many things like that. Also proactive and very powerful, or tried and true academic ways of discussing, whether that's text discussing or whether that's in an actual live conversation. So the elements we need are A, to unlock people, B, to get them thinking logically, and then once we're there, well, it's my assertion, and I think most of you will agree, I don't believe in 9/11 truth. The heart of it, 7, 1, and 2. I don't find the evidence that we all have looked at compelling anymore. I find it, as AE would say, conclusive, and you want to say overwhelming, but conclusive. And so that's a statement. They have the reasons for that, which are books and books, but what I would say is that the truth is there. And we can thus, with a person that's unlocked, fully engaged, and being really almost enhanced to be using good logic. I think it's possible then to implant that bug in them, and from there, I really do believe it's possible to win. I've thought of different avenues. Some like David was talking about earlier, trying to everybody, bring the factions together and discuss and present, and how do we do that? And I think there are tried and true.
I'm just going to interrupt you. If I don't know who has the background noise, but if someone could, whoever it might be, if you could just go on mute for a sec.
It might be me. I'm in a cafe.
So I came on.
Okay, Morgan, then make your point. Really, just make your point so that we can get to Ken and Susan.
Well, I am.
Yeah, okay.
The tried and true methods of science itself are established over hundreds of years. When when you create a space like in a university and you have high level graduate study, those people are in a zone. They are set up to succeed. The truth would be found there. You have the ability to establish fact, agree on what the facts are, and then the natural logic comes from there.
Morgan, everything you're saying is extremely abstract. It's I understand in theory everything that you're saying. The important thing is to come out of very specific action ideas, guidelines on things that could help to keep in mind to things we've said, use the tools that you have, meet people they are and what's relevant to them, speak to them in such a way that you can imagine you'd want to be spoken to if someone approached you, all of those things. But then specifically, you're not going to target, you're talking about university, whether you're talking about professors or students.
So I actually would
right?
say, I would say, I guess I have a lot of faith, but I may be talking in a way where I'm sort of revealing the points of it, as I go along. If I might finish, just to keep the train of thought for me and everyone. One thought I've had is to get, if we can get one person to go through a process. Say we develop a product which is like a 15-minute or a certain curriculum which is totally standardized. AE agrees with this curriculum, and it's a perfect way of logically taking a person into the realm where they cannot avoid what is undeniable conclusive proof.
They got to go
If
there.
we can do that, right. But if we can get a person to sign a whole giant formal process, probably, I mean, I've thought about it a lot, but it could be short, but we're talking about a serious thing.
I'm opposed to giant processes. I'm opposed to giant processes.
Right. Okay. That's good. But what I'm saying is, for me, if we can get one person, if we can develop something that actually does the job of, if someone's going to be, basically no one will be able to wriggle out. It's undeniable. You can't. Cognitive dissonance, that's one thing. And I know it doesn't necessarily solve people that would just lie to themselves. Okay. But what I'm saying now, especially with the public, it's very open to it anymore. What I'm saying is, if we develop something like that, though it would be hard to get anybody to do it, if we get 100 people, the percentage of those people from any walk of life, Democrat, Republican, lawyer, person on the street, if we get them, if we get an actual, I think 99% of people will agree to the facts and will agree to the basic summation. If we can get 100 people to do it in that manner, then we can get 90%.
Okay, Morgan, I sorry, I have to interrupt you.
I am just, if I could finish the last two sentences.
If you could, please, because I think a lot of people are losing you, and we're having trouble connecting to what you're saying. Because it remains very theoretical and abstract, and I'm trying to piece it together, and I'm having a really hard time. So yeah,
especially with the background noise. Are you at a bar?
No, I am at a cafe.
Yeah.
Cafe. I thought it was something like that.
Okay, so Morgan, quickly, if you could just wrap it up, because I really want to go to. I can't even remember. Ken still had his hand up. Ross. Well, Ken first. Then Susan, that you took it down. So Ken, Ross, Ed, and David. Okay, in that order. Okay, go Maureen.
Okay. So if we have a process where people go in and come out with a perfect logical truth that is undeniable, we have 100 people, we get 90%. We have 1,000 people, we get 90%. We get more and more and more. If we can present that to the media, to anyone, it's something unshakable, it's something to look at.
Yeah, you need an army to do that. You need an army to do that, and we don't have an army. I mean, not yet anyway. That's the plan. But yeah, right now, I mean, to do anything on a large scale requires the cooperation of some unbelievably dedicated people who will follow through and agree with being on board one specific project. And that's always the trouble with getting these things done. That's why people are often left better to do what they're good at in the way that they think, and then let it go organically.
Well, I have an answer for that too.
Okay, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, this isn't about facts. This hasn't been about facts for a long time. This is about belief systems. This is about, you can hammer people with facts all day you want to, left, right, and if they're not ready for it, their belief system is such that it pushes them into a defensive mechanism. They'll be fine with their cognitive dissonance. They will embrace their cognitive dissonance. They will have all kinds of internal conflict, and they will go on happily living that way, happily, quote unquote. So I get I like the idea. What I've found that seems to work for me, and everybody's going to kind of be different, and so that's fine. But is just be very consistent with what you're saying. It takes time. It's not something that happens right away. And be tricky. Be clever about how you do it. Don't just go in and, oh, hey, here's the information. I'm gonna convert you. Because literally it's almost like you're taking. I mean, even though everything that's there is all based on fact. And like, Dave said, you can kind of go right down just bam, bam, bam. We've got there's tons of fact. And, from a standpoint of, all the science behind it, that's, if you can get somebody to look at it, that's, incontrovertible, I think is the word. But it's trying to get people to that's not you, that's them. And so, the best you can do, and this is my belief. Okay, I'm going to say this is my belief system, not yours, not anybody else's. But the thing that I found at work is just be very consistent, set a good example, and act with integrity. Don't compromise your integrity, and then just be. I guess the word for it is just whatever you pick. Just be relentless about it. Just every day, bang, bang, bang. And then the nice thing about it is you really don't have to worry. The cognitive dissonance with everything that's going on now, I've never seen people as open to talking about things that were, formerly outside the Overton window, right? The Overton window has been shattered. So you can kind of, if you're smart about how you bring things in, you can bring in some of these topics, and a lot of it can just be related to what's going on today. Hey, does any of this stuff make sense? What's going on right now? We can just kind of talk through. Yeah, okay, well, there's been a lot of weird stuff going on, for years and years and years. And, oh, check out this building. What do you think of this? So I guess that's kind of it. I didn't want to take a bunch of time, but it's more of, I get the idea of, hey, let's hit people with fact. This isn't about fact. That's really it, because and that brings up the other good point, which is, God, somebody needs to get something admitted as evidence in a court somewhere. Really, you take whatever evidence, boom, just get it in there somehow, and have the judge say, oh yeah, I accept it as evidence somehow, somewhere. That would be the other thing that would be really nice to have happen, because until you have legal discovery, it's really hard to get that process going on the legal side, and that whole side is stacked against this. Yeah. And until until we have kind of a critical mass, honestly, I think that mass is already there. I think a lot of people have kind of already turned on to it more than would normally be needed to kind of cause that 10th monkey. You're just up against a relentless machine that is just hitting everybody with just, a message. And this doesn't fall within that message.
And if I can just say, what my takeaway from Ground Zero was also from all the people who did come and speak to us, and there were many, many young people, young, as in they were kids when 9/11 happened, or not even born yet. They seemed to express the fact that they'd had doubts for a long time. I didn't feel like anyone was receptive to being asked about it. Like they were dying to talk about it, and didn't have, and nothing in the media, nothing out there, nothing on, supported the fact that we are as many as we are. Like they thought they were alone with this, which is mind-boggling, really, considering how many we are.
Super quick. Everybody is alone right now at home.
Yes, but we have each other.
Agreed, but a lot of people out there, they get into this idea that, hey, I'm alone. That's intentional.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. It's made that way. Ross, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, of course, I'm familiar with most of the people on the call today, to a certain extent, anyway. And I just have to mention quickly, I've been involved actively in the truth movement for about a decade, and in the last 3 years, in late 2017, early 2018, I started my own kind of activities, because it's a little bit different than what the rest of the truth groups are involved with. I know that and respect all the different truth groups. I'm an architect, engineer, and lived in New York City, was here on 9/11. So I just felt like I had to do more than what most people can do around the country, because I'm really at ground zero every day, figuratively, literally, and in my career, and how it's affected my career. So the Truth Towers Volunteers is a group I created because I didn't want to focus at all on the Pentagon or on Shanksville. World Trade Center 7, yes, I'll focus on that. But again, it's not, I wanted to keep my sanity and my interest and not get burned out, because it's going to be my entire life is going to be. Right now with COVID, I've had the opportunity to spend 2 to 3 hours a day for the last 2 years on the streets of New York City, talking about 9/11 truth. And so it had to be something more optimistic. So basically, instead of trying to find justice and all these things about trying to prove, like somebody said on the call today, well, we know that there's an overwhelming body of evidence. we suffer from an overabundance of evidence. So I've taken it to some more positive, higher ground for me that I can work with over a long time, which is the towers themselves and what they were like forgetting about the day of 9/11. What they were iconic towers that were becoming more and more prominent as they got older. And I could go into that for a long time. The other reason that I miss them so much is because if you think of the future of those towers, it wouldn't have been office spaces. They would have been the largest vertical gardens in the history of the world, and they would have been able to feed the entire city of New York and Manhattan. Just those towers themselves, each floor was an acre in size, so that's 220 acres. That's if you don't even think about stacking up things in there. And so there was major opportunities for vertical gardening in those buildings, which I believe is what they would have eventually become. That would have been the payback for society. So I go with those kind of discussions when I'm on the street every day. And when people see me on my skateboard, which is one of the projects in the Truth Tower Volunteers, is called Constant Reminder. It's a skateboard I got with all the stickers from the movements around the years. So it gets people's attention and they start reading those and of course prompts a discussion about 9/11. And I always start with those things that, the towers would have been the largest vertical gardens in the world. It's a shame we don't have them. They are, and I'm confident to say this now, they were the strongest buildings ever built in the history of humanity. And that is something I'm very confident about backing up from my engineering background and also my study of the structure and other structures, obviously, that have been built since. To be able to say that, and that kind of gets people thinking in a different way, because one of the myths that the mainstream media has is that, there was this flaw in the design of the towers. It was made to be so efficient that they were weak. That's this kind of stuff. So I like to go onto that tact about them as what amazing structures they were. Forget about 9/11. Just as buildings to this day, they would be the strongest buildings standing. And another thing I like to talk about is, it says basically my Truth Towers Volunteers movement, I've got 10 or so active projects that I do. And I'll have some major news, hopefully. Next week I have a meeting with some people. And that's project, I can't remember the name of it. I got it in the list, but it's basically something I have to keep kind of under wraps for a while because I'm dealing with officials, city officials. And so I want to be able to, I can't have it be submarine by somebody like, Spike Lee, for example. So,
I'll make sure to bring it back when you are allowed to talk about it, though.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that'll be. I'm basically what I'll tell Gene is I think I'm giving you exclusive rights, Gene, for an interview of the Truth Tower Volunteers. I could say that for architects and engineers. I could say that for the Lawyers Committee. I could say it for a lot of different groups. Obviously for Richard Gage, but I'll give you the exclusive rights for me to go in. I've never really explained it to the broader truth community what it is I've been doing over the last since 2018, pretty much every day. And again, I got a big opportunity with COVID because I'm self-employed, and of course there wasn't anything else to do. And it was ironic that it's kind of fortuitous that way, and that 9/11 has brought so much positive activity to my life too. But mainly, again, I can't focus on the justice aspects or the criminal aspects too hard because I've done that, and you could do that for 30 years, and that'll just get you burned out. So anyway, someday I'll be able to tell you more about the different projects and share my screen with you and show you things.
Well, when the time comes, let us know in advance, and we'll reserve you a spot just for that week.
I will do that. That's what was my plan today. So thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Ross. Ed, and then David.
You had said I was next.
Oh, Ed, you're still on mute.
David had his hand up first. I'll defer to him.
Oh, sorry.
And then I'll come back.
Well, okay, if that's okay, then David, go ahead, and then Ed.
I want two things. One is that what many people have been saying is that there are better ways to do one-on-ones with newbies. And that actually, it would be worth it if a handful of us, or even 2 or 3, were to get together and try to winnow out a little workshop on how to talk to someone. I strongly disagree with being to just hammer them. I strongly disagree with that, although not everyone said that. I asked already before this meeting if we could have a discussion of a very concrete project. That is why Doug West is here, and that is the website physicsdenial.com. I don't know if we have time to have the conversation, although David Chandler is here, and I would certainly love to have him comment. Here is my simple introduction. We would build regular leafleting of business cards with this URL, physicsdenial.com, at colleges to encourage students to privately query their professors on the elementary physics of 9/11. I gave out 1,000 cards for a more advanced version at Northwestern in 2016, and we got 40,000 hits in 10 days. I used the line, disagreement about Newton's laws at Northwestern. I'll bet 50% of all community college students know there's not supposed to be disagreement about Newton's laws. Those laws came forth 100 years before the US Constitution. And the beauty of this website is that people who get it do not know that has anything to do with 9/11 until they go there. And so a significant percentage of people who would dismiss it out of hand might be a little less willing to dismiss it out of hand. Now, I recently had a conversation with an engineering professor in Czechoslovakia, and I wanted him to confirm, and I've had different people feel differently, and I'm certainly interested in David Chandler's opinion, that the most, that the third law is what we should focus on. I'm not 100% sure of that. I prefer to use Jonathan Cole's 2 first videos, which I'm sure David's familiar with.
They're on my site.
Of course. I love them, and I'm flexible, but I want. Some professors will tell people that they agree with the OCT, and some people won't. But the beauty of going to a professor is that privately after class is that way over 90% of physics teachers in college do not get federal money. They do not have to be worried about screwing up their career. And they can say anything they want privately after class to somebody who's registered in their class. There are a few points that I have that I want to go deeper into. I don't think we have time today, but David, do you agree that it's the third law that we should be focused on?
I don't parse it out like that. I think all Newton's laws are sort of a unity, really. I mean, I don't think that really hits it. Can I insert something in the middle of your commentary here? Is that I had an experience with presenting to the American Association of Physics Teachers several years ago at a national conference, and I did a talk. And I did a poster session, if you know what those are. You put up a big thing and they have a whole session where people walk around and then you stand by your poster and talk about it. I had 100 people pick up flyers for that. So I dealt with about 100 physics teachers that day. By and large, they would come by and you could tell they're snickering or sneering or something. And I would just say, do you realize that one of the buildings at the World Trade Center came down at absolute free fall? And they said, no. I said, well, look over here. And one guy just came over and he was completely dismissive and disparaging, but he stood there and went through the little graph in the poster. And he just then left, and he came back with half a dozen of his friends, and they stood around and talked about it. And it was just simply, you know, somebody saying, well, you don't need the facts. You do need the facts. And you don't really need much else if you can get somebody who's capable of understanding the facts, and who you get them in a position where they're open enough to trying to understand it. I mean, this guy spent the rest of the time saying, how come this isn't more widely known? That was his main question. So that was the kind of reception I was getting. It's not that all of these physics teachers and physicists and engineers and whatever are in favor of the official theory. It's that they have never considered the alternative. So that was my experience there.
And where did you do this, David? Where
this was at the AAPT conference in Portland, Oregon, before I even moved to Portland. This was some years ago. But I gave a talk, but that was only like to maybe 30 people in the room. But then this poster session, like I said, there's 100 people that took a flyer. So it was like, and it was by and large, people who had no clue of the nature of the evidence, and simply presenting the evidence saying, I've measured the buildings coming down and it was absolute free fall. Take a look. Yeah. That's all it took. That's absolutely everything I had to say. And those who buy it.
Yeah. And the takeaway from that is that you do have to go outside the echo chamber, and you do have to meet people one-on-one, and you do have to have the courage to present it in person. You know, that, you know, they see you there. You're standing there, you're taking responsibility for your material and for the information you're putting out there. They can ask you questions right off the bat.
And some were just in total denial and wouldn't even look at it. So that's another response, but that's them. But those who would actually look at it, by and large, that's all it took. They saw free fall, they understood the implications of free fall.
And that's your seed, right? And that's the seed that you planted, and you don't know what they did with that information when they went back home with that in their head.
Well, I figure they still have that rattling around in their head if they haven't been doing anything since. So I don't know.
Well, we don't know really, but you know, I mean, I find out every day about people who've been doing things that I had no idea they were, you know.
Yeah. So I don't know about trying to parse it down to one particular. I mean, Newton's laws are just three statements that sort of consolidate a worldview. And so the Newtonian worldview is, you know, I think you can't separate them out really. So I disagree with David on that point, but on the idea that it's not any harder than that. I mean,
can I ask you, David, to look at this website and critique it?
Yeah, sure. I just brought it up over here. I hadn't seen it before. So
email me, please, with whatever you want to say about it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Whose is that, by the way?
It's mine.
Oh, yours. Okay.
Doug's my webmaster. He built it. And David Cole came up with the name physicsdenial.com. Tony Zambotti helped with Besant misconduct.
Okay. All right. I'll take a look at it.
Elementary level of Besant misconduct.
And did you bring Doug on the call for anything specific related to this, or just wanted
to have more of a conversation about this? Maybe we shouldn't have such a conversation here because there's so many folks who have other things to say. Maybe it should be done at a different time, but that's what I had hoped, is that we could.
Right. Well, you know, it might not be a bad idea to, you know, I mean, we're doing this every week, you know, if we can, you know, pick out one of the next couple of Sundays to specifically focus on that and invite specifically people who would like to take part in that discussion. And then at least we would all be there for the same thing and have that discussion.
I can't do it on the 7th, but the weekend before or after I could.
Okay, well, we can check with you. I mean, we don't have to write it in the stone just yet.
There was an interesting dynamic that happened here was we've been talking about how facts, sometimes people aren't going to hear facts. It's past that with what Ken Henry shared with us. It's now something more than that. But what David shared with us, Chandler, he was in a setting where he was presenting facts, but it broke through those barriers of
the
people not accepting facts. It was a physics teachers going through and seeing the evidence, and they couldn't deny it. So he didn't have to beat them over the head with anything. He was passively just sitting there, and they were observing the evidence, and they couldn't deny it. So there's something beautiful there in that psychology, and I want to think on that. But.
Yeah, and Ken put that in the chat. He said they were obviously ready to hear it, because those that walked away from it still in denial were.
Yeah, I've
Really
actually
not.
2 PhDs I've used that approach on, and that was the only way to get through it was see it. Okay, see it. All right. And then it was literally, one was a month later, one was like 3 months later. They came back and was like, what's going on there? And that for somebody that they've got, that's a lot of walls built up, right?
Yeah.
When you get to that level of being through the education system that long, education system. So that's really kind of the only way it'll work with some people. And if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. And that's just it.
And maybe something else would, and something else will. You know, like you said, I mean, everybody is gonna, you know, have a different angle to which they're gonna hear it, and yeah. So, you know, best thing is just to keep on trying and plucking away at it. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself while that car alarm is going on.
Ed, you have the floor.
Ed's
Thank
next.
you. Thank you, guys. You know, this is the second time I've been part of this meeting, so thank you guys. I've been part of this whole movement since around 2004, so quite a long time. And I want to express something. Some observations I've made over the years, and I'm seeing it kind of playing out now, and it makes me worried a little bit. You know, with respect to 9/11 and the grand narrative that it is, it's easy and understandable that people focus on areas that they're comfortable with. Physicists focus on physics. David has done many work with the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, and other architects and engineers focusing on that area, and then our efforts to kind of express these concerns to the masses and get them to see the problems, and then they go, then they start to question, and then they go on and do their own research, and then what happens though is that what I see is that it gets so far with like Building 7. And then they go and do the research of Building 7. And then they find out, yeah, it did come down controlled demolition. It did come down free fall. And then they are like, well, now what? Who did it? And then what happens at that point, nobody has any answers. And then they become apathetic. And that's why you see this peak in 9/11. You see this drop in 9/11, because a lot of people just, there's nothing, it's like there's no new information coming out. There's no new data. There's nothing to take that information and move it forward. There's nothing to link anybody to it directly. You can speculate all day long about government involvement, et cetera, and there may be, may not be, I don't know. It looks like there is. I shouldn't say government involvement. Government is defined by the Constitution. You can't do anything wrong by itself, but people, nefarious people, even if they work in government offices. But how is this group going to overcome that problem with respect to, having the totality of the brain power in this room, and then having it go so far, and then not being able to go any further, and then keep the masses from going apathetic, because we're not getting into the areas of who did it, geopolitics, etc. And then how do we introduce that into this narrative? Because it is very complicated, and really most people are not going to do that work.
Can I make a comment in response?
David, you
Sure.
can. Let me say something first,
Right.
and then Robbie, you can. The first the first program, we didn't expect to have anybody on, and Christopher Joya joined us on the first call, and then Mick Harrison joined us on the second and third call. And I get your frustration there, Ed, and I think a lot of the advanced 9/11 truth advocates are looking for deeper solutions than just dancing around the facts all these years. And I respect that. I really think that the Lawyers Committee, even though Mick Harrison himself will say that we're not the end all be all for solving 9/11 here, there's certainly a very powerful force. And while we're not naming who did it, I think the material, the FBI lawsuit that they have for material witnesses, point H, which would be those characters that were there to document the event, they're not outright calling people, but they're starting to hint at it, because we got to understand, you know, the loaded terms and all kinds of catch-22 on things when you bring out the who on this. I really think the grand jury investigation is what we should be seeking, because only there we'll have, and you guys have heard me say this a million times, that's where we get subpoena power, testimony under oath, and the discovery of all relevant evidence. And that's where we can start indicting people and calling in the who's. So I know it's 20 years and we've been through this a million times, and we've talked over facts and beat the horse dead and dug it up a million times. But this group was not really in an effort to try to solve anything. It's more like, it's like Cheers. I love that TV show. Every Thursday night, you knew you could come somewhere and people were going to be there that knew your name and they could talk about something in common. And really, every Sunday, I want people to feel comfortable. They can, you know, come and talk somewhere about things. And now I'm rambling, but thank you. Go ahead, David.
I want to respond to Ed Brotherton, because there's a group, I mean, Ed, and then I get it from Nelson Martins and a couple other guys. That,
Adam and
yeah, you know the group I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's sort of a reaction against all the physics and stuff like that. I want to, by the way, can you give me permission to share my screen?
Yes.
Whoever's controlling this.
I can do that, I think.
So I want to point you to, what I'm getting is a caricature of what I'm doing, at least. And I'm not sure about other, okay, thank you. Let me just go here. Okay. Okay. My site's 9/11 Speak Out. I just want to point people to a couple of things. Right up here at the beginning, right at the beginning, yeah. Anyway, I have an article called Free Fall on Medium. Here it is. 6-part serial essay. How many of you have seen that? Medium.com is a place where people can post essays. And this is to the general public. So this is trying to speak outside the box. My sister, who's a writer, is the one who put me onto this, and anybody can get an account there and post stuff. So I wrote this 6-part thing, starting with the very basics and looking at free fall. And the last part, I'm actually going beyond just the physics of it. You know, what are the implications of it? And if you take the implications of the fact that Building 7 was in free fall, therefore it was demolished, it couldn't have happened as a natural collapse, and therefore it involved foreknowledge and complicity in the event, and therefore the hijackers and all that were a cover story. I'm not denying that it happened, but it was a cover story because the explosives had to have already been there. And then you had to have the government covering, I mean, the military covering for the planes. You have NIST covering for the story and so forth. The ripple effect, I basically follow the implications of simply the building was in free fall. What are the consequences? And it gets into at least putting constraints on who are the culprits behind this. So I go there, and I don't know how many of you have even seen this, but that's there. And the other thing is that if you go down a little bit further, this is the talk I gave at University of Colorado Boulder in 2018 on 9/11. And this is a talk I gave that's based on that series of articles. And I do it there as well. So this one, if anybody haven't seen this one talk I gave is what I consider the single best presentation of my research right here in this one talk. So I would hope that you would at least take a look at that. And no, I'm not just focused in on technical stuff to the exclusion of all the political ramifications. I just wanted to say that. I think that's a caricature rather than an actual accurate description. So
This is
anyway,
beacon.com, David?
this is 9/11speakout.org.
Okay.
Right there.
Robbie, you're
Okay,
up.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta unmute yourself, brother.
Huh?
Robbie's up as soon as he unmutes it. Or I'll ask him to unmute. There we go.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure if it was me on deck next or not. I just wanted to say I have seen that website, 9/11 Speaks Out. Thank you for that. But the thing that I just wanted to comment briefly on is something that is kind of critical to it. And, I don't want to divulge it, but, people like, Sandra said, it's like pretty much all of us here didn't get spoon-fed this. We kind of had our moment of recollection and went out looking for our information ourselves. We had our open-minded part. A lot of people are not like that. A lot of people, I've had it before where it's like, and that's exactly why I asked. It's important to understand why this is important to you. But I just wanted to bring up that a lot of times people get discouraged. It's like, they're like, okay, you got me. You convinced me, Robbie, 9/11 is an inside job. The government did this. I don't even have to go into the who, what, when, where, but then what? And that becomes another critical topic of that, where I usually point to the lawyers committee for trying to get accountability. And then what I do is I suggest that, the reason why this is so important to me is because, I think history repeats itself and you're doomed to repeat it. If what you don't know, power is knowledge. And if we don't have a common recollection on what happened in our history, we're going to be, we're going to repeat it for sure. But these are all things that I think are very critical, but at the same time can dilute and stop any type of, going completely forward. But I think it should be on people's minds that we need to have we need to talk as if we have a solution in order to tell people that, there's something that we can do. So I just wanted to mention that. Hope. We need hope.
I'd also
Agreed.
like to add it. No, I lost my train of thought.
The train never got off the ground.
No, so ridiculous.
Yeah, but yes, I think that is a key thing that, even if you get someone, I always, again, out of the things I keep saying is that there's two hurdles, and one of them is getting people to look at the information and agreeing that there's something there. But then the next step is getting them to care. And by getting them to care means getting them involved, wanting them to do something about it. Whatever that next step is, maybe we need to clarify that a little bit. Maybe we can hash that out, what that next step might be in a constructive way, so that people, once they do agree that, okay, like Robbie just said, you've convinced me, I'm listening, what now? So that we have an answer to that what now. Not everybody wants to become an activist necessarily. It's great if they do, but what can they do with that information? And how does it affect them? So that definitely, and what I'd say to Ed is that, no matter how well laid out the information can be as to who did it and who was involved and the geopolitics, and it is a critical angle, I steadfastly abstain from pointing any fingers, because that's my weakest link. And whatever I bring up has to be rock solid. It has to be untouchable. And if it's even remotely outside of that, it gives them all the ammunition they need to tear it down. So if I'm going to even hint at anybody having been implied, they're going to ask for proof. I cannot provide proof. I can connect the dots all I want till I'm blue in the face. That's still
the
not
first one. Well, no, it's the second one.
Where's
Okay,
that
someone
coming from?
needs to go on mute because someone's got their mic on in this background
I got it.
conversation. So yeah, I mean, it's, yes, as important as it is, but it sets me up to be vulnerable if I imply anything and can't back it up. And so, but again, if someone else can do a better job of it, if you can do that, then that's great. And
Can I respond to that real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not so much, it's obviously important to find out who did it. And there is a lot of evidence to, when you look at the geopolitics angle, there's a lot of evidence that points in specific directions. However, when one studies that angle, you'll find a lot more criminal complaints to be filed with respect to probable cause and things of that nature, much like there was with respect to the World Trade Center demolitions. There's a plethora of possible criminal complaints to be filed at that angle. Go talk to Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer. He's the one who was supposed to testify before the 9/11 Commission, and was told point blank, "We have our narrative. We don't need your testimony." So they left out, incredible evidence that he had, because he was the one literally monitoring all the hijackers from 1996. He was the one monitoring the Hamburg cells, etc. We know the NSA has 300 pages worth of metadata on satellite telephone communications, all that stuff, but nobody looking at that information.
You understand that that's overwhelming, though. I mean, geopolitics in themselves are
overwhelming. That's why nobody looks at it, and that's the problem. So we end up with this stop loss right here, and nobody wants to go past it because it's hard.
This would be a great avenue.
I can't accept that.
This would be a good avenue. Maybe you could help us to bring. Okay, let me just be transparent here. You guys might know that I don't get along with Nelson Martins a whole lot, but if he's got facts to present, and him and talking to Adam Fitzgerald, those guys know their geopolitics. Hats off to them on that. If you could break it down for us and be in some way that you could, because geopolitics is a lot to take in. I mean, talking to Adam and he starts throwing out these names, and I can't keep track of that many. Ashwood, Holly.
There's a lot.
Oh my goodness. So I would love to have conversations. If you could spoon feed us, not kill us with a half an hour of that, because it just was bore people to tears. But
I would definitely see what I can do there and try and keep it tangible and absorbable and and do it in a way that can be accepted in on a comfortable level. And then and as people's knowledge increases, their ability to increase, take in more information will increase too. And then you'll start seeing some of the connections, like I brought up Sakur Hamad last talk, and I dropped that name on purpose because I don't know if anybody here knows that name, but he was one of the pieces, could be a prime suspect in the actual planting of explosives. So it's little things like that, but thank you for that. Thank you for suggesting that.
Thank you, Ed. And what I forgot to say, but I remembered, was I wanted to deflect back to Marty Hopper saying that our two biggest hurdles right now are mainstream media and winning over public opinion. So I think if we can win over public opinion, we don't have to worry so much about mainstream media, because their ratings are already diving like crazy. So really, it's just however each of us feels comfortable with the gifts we're given to share information as an activist. Do it to the best of your ability. If it's geopolitics, own it. If you're a physics teacher, go for it. If you're just a guy on the street in Pittsburgh, do what you can. But yeah, this is a body of wonderful people that we have many different avenues of ways of reaching out.
And if you're a comedian, then go for it.
Yes.
Pointing the finger specifically at Robbie, because
actually I'm gonna go. I'm actually on my way. I just drove downtown. I'm actually hitting an open mic right now. I got to work out my Alec Baldwin bits.
Oh my God!
Awesome.
Got a boatload of material there.
So we asked Sandra got a hold of Robbie a little bit ago, and he is in the comedy realm, and we asked him, in the future we're trying to build bridges with people, and the best way to do that was comedy. Is there any way we can break through with 9/11 conspiracy comedy and start to break through with people on that? And he's starting to think about it. So
Yeah. And maybe that could be partially a change in direction, or at least one avenue to explore. Is, you know, for us, all of us, 9/11 is serious, and rightfully so. But there is a case to be made about the official narrative being so ridiculous that it is almost a comedy unto itself. And there is a comedian in the Netherlands called George van Houts, who has a 2-hour stand-up on 9/11 alone, nothing else. And he did a tour of 50 sold-out shows in the Netherlands just on that material alone. Wow. So that goes to speak towards how it can be done, and how there is, you know, people are receptive to it. And he's laughing and he's presenting the narrative like it's like, can you believe, you know, that people actually fell for this? And if you can get people to laugh, that is extremely powerful. And it doesn't have to be stand-up comedy, you know. Gene does it with memes, because sometimes, yeah, the truth is just so ridiculous that all you can do is almost make fun of it. And if you can get people to laugh, that's great. So I think we do need to look at the comedy aspect of it.
we're seeing Dave Chappelle do it right now with the cancel culture. I don't know where you guys stand on anything, but you know, that's happening.
Well, I will just, if I could say one thing, I found some information out. There's something that I'd recommend if you're interested in looking up something. There is Stand Up for Assange, and it took place this weekend and then also last weekend. And Stand Up for Assange had Lee Camp and also a few other stand-up comedians. But what I'm noticing,
it's tonight,
yeah, it's tonight.
In New York.
That's right.
Tonight in New York City, by the way. It was the other night in Washington, D.C., but it's happening in half an hour tonight.
Yeah. When I watched it, it was pretty great. But the thing is like, and it's booking a show with the intention so the audience has an idea about what they're getting in for. And the moment you can do that, then you can touch these topics. But it's, if you go into a show and it were to be a bit, it's a bit harder. But that's what I'm kind of discovering right now.
Right.
Thank you, Robbie.
Actually,
Okay,
I'm gonna go sign up. I think I got to roll.
Right on.
Thank you guys for everything. I'll
Thanks
see
so
you
much,
next
Robbie,
week.
for joining. I'm gonna say, I think Ed just left. I wanted to say bye to Ed. He had to leave too.
Okay.
And bye, Robbie. And Ken has his hand up, so go ahead, Ken.
No, I was just going to say the whole humor thing. I want 3 things real quick. One, the media is dying. So anything you can do to assist with that, it doesn't have to be related to this topic. Anything you can do to assist with that, to help with that, please do so.
But die, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you can do to help, you know, to help with destroying that credibility, whatever's left, just pile on. 2, the humor. A lot of the psychological defenses people have, humor bypasses. So I will jump on that dog pile too. Humor is a key element. And so anything you can do, the idea of going at this from a comedy side, because it's really getting comical, ladies and gentlemen, that's a great, I think that's a smart way to go.
You just offered a little bit there. You basically go on and say, you know, I've heard that media is dying. How can I help? I mean, that's a line. I mean,
exactly.
You skipped right over that.
So yeah, and actually I skipped right over my third point, which I don't remember at this point, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But yeah, no,
I'm not a comedian.
Anything you can do to
somebody
help.
can deliver that.
Yeah, but yeah, humor. That's a great tool. Use it maximum, as much as you can. Oh, that's the third point. Guess what people really want to do right now with everything going off? People want to laugh. They do. They're dying to take advantage. All right.
Does anybody have anything else? Because I don't have any energy left.
You need to go to bed.
I do.
You held up very nicely.
That was a good call. Good talk.
I just had a brainstorm.
Go for it.
Who was saying that, you know, they've convinced people, they're now convinced, and what do they do next?
Yeah, that was Robbie who was saying it before.
Yeah, it kind of just made me think of something I could do kind of mostly on my own. But with lots of emails and influence from everybody is like create a little drop-down menu on one of the websites. I don't even know which one, maybe Truth 9/11. But like, what can they do? Okay, I could contact all the different groups, and every once in a while, you guys need somebody to. I think it was Ross. We each took 10 names to email, or there's little jobs that people have. And maybe there could be like a clearinghouse, and we could put that on the website. I can write all this out to make it clear. And we could come up with a reading list, interview or send out an email. What's your top 10 on the reading list? What's your top 10 on the video list? And have that as number 2. And then maybe as number 3, which is one of my favorite things to do, is collect the latest flyers, with all the information, and kind of train people to do some on the street flyering, and which is something I love to do. So, I'll write that up, and I know it's a big commitment, and if I make a commitment, I'll follow it through. But I would need I wouldn't need physical help. I would just need, a lot of suggestions. Like I said, what's your top 20? If you guys think it's a good idea, where could we put it? But, I'd be willing to contact all these groups all over, anywhere, and be like a clearinghouse and see if they have little jobs.
What do you mean by little jobs?
Well, I'll have to think about it. Like I said, I'm just in the brainstorm level.
Okay.
But sometimes you need somebody to do a graphic. Like,
Right.
oh my gosh, we need this tomorrow.
Oh,
Or sometimes you need to send out an email to 1,000 people, and you need to designate, like, hey, can you take 50? Can you take 50 tonight?
right.
And things like that. What else? Little things like that. It's
Yeah. So basically, it's building a community of people who can help each other out with various initiatives.
Yeah, because that is a big thing. Okay, I'm convinced. What are we going to do about it? What can I do?
Right.
Well, and then there's other people who say, oh, I have so many ideas, but I don't have anybody to help me.
Okay.
David Slesinger, he has a bunch of ideas.
Right.
We could send people his way. We could have this reading
Right.
list. We could
Well,
train.
It's a little bit, the point of this gathering to kind of like, build that. And, maybe you and I can have a quick conversation sometime this week about how to, piece it all together and where we can take it and what it might look like, and see where it fits in,
Yeah, let's do, let's do that this week or next week. I've got this new job. I'm like completely overwhelmed. It's the hardest job I've ever had. But
hey, but at least you have a job.
I know. I'm telling you, I, as some of you know, I had to move. I had to quit a job. I had a lot of personal issues, but I have a job now, and
that's amazing. I'm happy for you.
I don't have to show my papers.
Nice. Nice.
So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
All right, Deb. Okay, so we'll talk. Well, we'll figure something out, and we'll take that beyond the call after this. David, your hand's up.
I just figured out how to raise my hand. I've never done that before. Anyway, I have a kind of response. I didn't contribute earlier on this point, but when people ask, okay, I'm convinced, what do I do now? Okay, like that thing, I gave that some thought. And basically my answer is get involved with torture, drones, war in the Middle East. I mean, Palestinian rights.
Oh, I thought you wanted us to torture them.
No. I'm just saying these kinds of issues are the things that 9/11 facilitated. So everything that's based on 9/11 as a rationale, these are ways to respond to the toxic effect of 9/11.
Yeah.
So I just thought that would be that's a twist on how do I respond. Not everybody's going to go out and pound on the 9/11 issue, but all of these spin-off issues have had the rationale knocked out from under them.
Right.
And it's
Yeah, you could,
those are areas to get involved in.
you could come up with some really good reading material on that. We could put it on the reading list or something like that to just say, this is important.
Yeah. David Slesinger? You're on mute.
Muted.
There's nothing wrong with David Chandler's proposal, but my proposal is that we should have concrete projects, simple little projects, little groups of people working on that could be optioned for them. I proposed 70 different work teams at AE when I was there. I found team leaders for over 30. A few of them lasted several years. Some did not get off the ground. Every single one of these teams were shut down. We need to revive teams like that.
Well, we need self-starters. We need people who are not going to need to be led by the hand and be told what to do. We need people to just run with things.
Well, some people can do that, but most people can't. They need to have a project where somebody can mentor them.
Right, right. But we don't have that luxury of having that many mentors. That's the problem. And the mentors have to be committed. But I mean,
for instance, one of the things I was most proud of in the teams I thought of was the concrete trades team and the steel trades team. And I found people for both of those teams. We never were given the list that we needed for them to reach out to. But these are people who absolutely, of course, do know about their trades that they've been at for whatever number of decades. So they are good potential mentors.
Right. But more than being skilled, you need people who are passionate, dedicated, and who are doing this, whose mission is to do this. That's what drives all of us. Anybody beyond that is going to fizzle out really quickly. So that's why we need to we need to find people, but they have to roll up their sleeves and just do it.
Some will fizzle out and some won't.
Yeah, no, everything's worth trying, David. But I'm gonna let this call end because I know that Gene's barely holding up, and we've been on for a little while, and it's been great having all of you guys, first timers and returnees.
Yeah.
And
get your
all those
vitamin D, C, and zinc, Gene.
D3, K2, and zinc. Yes, sir.
And
Yes.
C2, while you're at it.
Quercetin. Real quick, if anyone does want to go on the live stream for the Assange event, because I'm going to do it. I know a lot of people are boycotting it because they're not allowed in physically. Guess why? But it is on live stream. And if you want to find the link, just go to Randy Credico on Twitter, Randy or Lee Camp on Twitter, and you'll get the link. It starts at 7. And it's right down the street from me, my favorite place. I know the owners and everything, but I can't go in.
You're not allowed to go, no.
Not allowed to go. And I asked the owner if the performers all have to be jabbed, by the way. And you know what? She wasn't able to tell me. And she would if she knew, but she's just like, oh, I think that's the theater side. And whatever. But anyway, because that's the first thing I wondered. All these people, Roger Waters and Lee Camp. And okay, just wanted to put that in. You can get the link.
Okay, thanks, Deb. And I do want to say just a quick thank you also to those who were on the call who did not speak. Roy, Lou, I don't know if I'm missing some. It was really nice. You did not go unnoticed. We appreciate that you came. We hope, a lot of people will just want to tune in and listen and check it out, and that's absolutely fine. Everybody's welcome to come in, and nobody has to.
I don't know what I'm permitted to say. I would have the question of how many people have been banned from this group during its existence, and for what reason or reasons. Has anyone been banned from this group?
Nope.
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's a surprise. That's a surprise.
No, the only guideline here is respectful conversation. That's it.
That filters out some people right there.
Well, we haven't had to deal with it just yet, so.
Not yet.
It's a brand new group.
It is.
I was muted. I had that attitude because I know this discussion group is linked to the 9/11 Truth Movement Facebook group. When I asked about that the last time I was here, it seemed like everybody who responded on that had a connection to the 9/11 Truth Movement Facebook group.
It has nothing to do with the Truth Movement Facebook group. I mean, we post the link to the call in that group because heck, it's got 40,000 followers. If we want to reach people, that's the place to go. But you know, Gene and I are independent of any group, any movement, any angle. We care about.
Okay. I am glad to hear that also. But basically, I'm not preaching anything. I'm not an active. I have been active in 9/11 Truth in the past. I am not active in 9/11 Truth now. It would be kind of senseless to try to be active about 9/11 Truth in the Costa Rican village where I live now. I mean, nobody knows. Which, you know, but basically, I'm watching with some interest, and I'm not into preaching anything or presenting anything or proposing anything. And I may or not have a continuing interest in following the discussions in the group or not.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely fine. Whatever, it's up to you. Just a side note, I don't know if you know Bill Jacoby, but he has a house in Costa Rica and he lives there 6 months out of the year. So
who's that?
Bill Jacoby.
I don't know him. Yeah.
He's part of on the board of the Lawyers Committee, and he's the founder of 9/11 TAP.
Do you know in what town or province he
I
is?
do not. I do not. But
curious, if you're nearby, I could go over and have a chat.
Well, that's all I'm saying.
There aren't that many people here. Okay. Well,
I mean, it's smaller than Canada, and I always like when people find out that I'm Canadian and say, "Oh, do you know so and so?" It's like, yeah, no, that's the other side of it. That's 6 hours away from me. So, but Costa Rica, you might have a chance.
Okay.
Well, you're welcome any Sunday to come by. Again, you don't have to share anything, but if you want to hear about a subject, and just
I have a few things. I have a few things I could share that the group would find interesting, I'm sure. But maybe I'll say something at some point then. A couple of stories about my uncle and a fireman from the Bronx, or maybe it was Brooklyn, but he had a very interesting story. I put it on the group. I think I wrote it down. I've got it even written down somewhere. But it was something that who was the guy in New York? Jerry Mazza, was it something like that? Jerry Mazza, I think his name was. He was pretty visible. David Chandler should be familiar with him. Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
Oh yeah.
Jerry who?
M-A-Z-A, I think. This was some time ago, but I contacted him about it. I contacted Professor Griffin about it, and Professor Griffin put an assistant on the story, but he wound up saying, well, it's not going to, it's not going to go anywhere. The media will never report it, or nobody will cooperate in New York City. I think that was he was pessimistic about anyone talking about it. It was very curious. The fire chief who was at WT7 had been appointed on September the 10th, and he was promoted to fire chief and later demoted because when he was promoted to fire chief at Building 7 on September 10th, he was not qualified. He had a fake internet diploma. So he was promoted to September 10th, and he told this fireman to go in with his squad and put out the small office fires in Building 7, and they were gearing up to go into the building when he came up and he said, no, don't go into the building and put out the small office fires.
This is interesting.
So, yeah, I have the names of the people involved.
Only-
I have the document.
Not to
Go
interrupt
ahead.
you, Roy, but this is really kind of interesting because 2 years ago when I went up with Cat Waters, we walked through Little Italy and went to a firehouse, and we got a fireman to talk to us. And he said, we were about to walk into 7, and our chief turned to us and said, where are you going? I said, in here to put the fires out. He said, you're not going in there. He said, we walked, Gene. He said, 60 seconds later, that building came down right behind us. So this may be the same chief that you're talking about. So this is really kind of interesting. So we're gonna have to talk about this.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. I can. Are you on Facebook?
Yep, I am.
Your name?
Yep, Gene Larotonda.
Okay. I can send it to you.
Please do, Roy. Thank you. And
Yeah,
again,
I think that's
come back.
worth a bigger conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Oh,
one.
I should have the guy's name in my head. I can find it quick enough.
That's okay. Just take the time to put it together after the call and just send them the information.
Okay.
Thank you,
Any
Roy.
good thing come out of Costa Rica. You have to be biblically literate to understand.
As long as I have the floor here for the second, I can also that was what the one thing. The other thing was my uncle, who was a GE engineer, and we were in constant contact at the time, and so like a year after 9/11, I saw the collapse of Building 7, and he's with engineers. So I asked him about it. I write him about it. He doesn't reply. I don't get a reply to my email, and I wrote him a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and I'm getting like, "What's this? Why aren't you saying anything about this?" And so the fifth time I wrote him, it was like, "Oh my God, you're in on this! What a freak out!" And after the fifth time that I wrote him, he wrote back and he said, "Dear Roy, I've been a lot of places and done a lot of things, and some of them are best left in the past. Love, Uncle Payson." And that's all he ever said about it.
Mm.
He had a whole string of suspicious stuff. He seemed like a real perpetrator.
And is he still around? Is he still alive?
He would never talk about it. He told me he could tell me a lot of stuff about 9/11 and other stuff too, but then he'd have to kill me.
Wow.
Okay, so what's the problem?
Problem. I don't have any. No, the problem is I don't. The problem is I'd like to know what he did, and I'll never find out. Curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Mhm.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Well, I think we'll really have to call it. If that's okay with you guys. Thanks for everyone who's still left on it. Thanks for everyone for contributing. And
okay, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Gene, final words.
Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.
All right. See you next
well.
Sunday. Okay, bye.
Bye.